The Narc Survivor live video, live here in my hotel room, overlooking the city. It's got a dirty window. You can kind of make out the skyscrapers out there. But yeah, I'm very excited to share this concept with you about how the narcissist already knows their fate. Something that I've never really talked about in my past videos. But I'm very excited to share this with you in this one, because it's true. The narcissist already knows their fate. And you're trying to explain it to them. You're trying to get them to understand. And it's like they just don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen to you. They don't want to know. They don't want to do anything about it. And they may seem stubborn. They may seem as though they're just resistant to change. But deep down, they actually know where their behavior is going to lead them. They know where that mindset, that attitude is going to get them. They know that it's going to affect them. It's going to come back to them at some point. And this is actually why they do everything that they do. This is why they behave in the way that they do. This is why they have all of these manipulative tactics for that very reason. Because they already know their fate. Because they already know what's going to happen to them. This is why they manipulate you. This is why they love bomb you, because they know that if they didn't manipulate you, if they didn't love bomb you, then things would not go very well for them. If they just let things pan out naturally, that they know that it wouldn't be a desirable result for them if they didn't manipulate you, and that's why they do it. To try and avoid their fate. To try and avoid what might naturally occur. So that's why they manipulate you. That's why they love bomb you. But then, nature continues its course. Natural selection at play. Where then it's like, hold on a minute. You then start to wake up. You then start to catch on. You then start to think, hold on, something's not right here. This person is disingenuous. This person is fake. This person is just manipulating me. They're giving me lies and future faking, but nothing is actually happening. And that's just nature taking its course. That's natural selection, where you begin to become aware of it. Where you begin to realize that this person is manipulating and deceiving you. This person is lying and future faking. You begin to realize that. And then again, the narcissist is trying to avoid the natural course. They're trying to get ahead of natural selection through devaluing you, putting you down, making you doubt yourself, targeting your self-esteem, your confidence, to try and reverse the roles on you, to turn the tables on you. And if that doesn't work, if they can't change your perception of yourself, then they see you're beginning to become a threat to them. It's like you're allowing fate to come after them, to take them down, for karma to get to them, by not standing in the way of it, by not validating the illusion. So then they've got to change everyone else's perception of you. They've got to take you down. They've got to take you out. And that's when they go and they bring in their flying monkeys. They start a smear campaign against you. It's all just to avoid their fate. It's to avoid themselves from going under. But really, they're just delaying the inevitable. And they're delaying the inevitable because beneath the manipulation, beneath the facade, the smear campaign, they're still that person. They're still just running game on you. They're still manipulating you, lying to you, cheating you, conning you. And people who do these types of things, they have a fate. It gets them somewhere. But it doesn't get them somewhere good. It will affect them at some point. But everything they do is to try and avoid the natural course, to avoid their fate, to avoid their karma. This is why they manipulate you, they deceive you, they lie to you, they future fake you. This is why they try and pull you off your natural course, where you're naturally headed to. This is why they try and pull you off of that. Because then by destabilizing you, it makes them feel more stable and secure. It makes them feel like they're on track. So this is why they have all of these tactics. This is why they do all of the things that they do. It's because they know at some level they're aware of their inevitable fate. And they're just doing everything they can to try and stay afloat. They'll target anyone who's real, anyone who's genuine and authentic. They'll discredit those people. They'll discredit the very people who are trying to do more. They're trying to do better. They're trying to be a genuine, authentic person themselves. Those are the people who they will discredit. Because those very people are a threat to the illusion. They make the narcissist feel exposed. They reveal their vulnerabilities, their weaknesses. Now the narcissist doesn't like that. It makes them feel very insecure. That's where they then target your insecurities, your confidence. They try and bring you down. But that wouldn't naturally happen. That's not nature, that's not natural selection. It wouldn't naturally happen. You naturally intimidate them by you not doing anything at all, just by you working on yourself, just by you trying to be better. But they don't naturally have that effect on you. They have to go out of their way to threaten, coerce, and intimidate you. Because none of this would naturally happen. They would never naturally be anywhere near you. That would never take place unless because they manipulate you, they deceive you. They only get you by manipulating and deceiving you, not by them just being themselves. But as for you, because you're naturally of a high vibration, you naturally just get everything you want. Abundance, it just falls into your lap. Because you're being authentic, you're being yourself. And you get everything when you're being yourself, because by being yourself, you deserve everything. When you're existing in your true power. But they have to manipulate you in order to get anything out of you, or to get anything out of anyone. They can't get it by being themselves, because they're underdeveloped. And they abandoned their true self a long time ago. So they have no true power of their own. And this is why everything they do is to try and diminish your power and to steal it from you. And then also to use it against you. But that's what you will start to see if you're not seeing it yet already. You will start to see that not only are they taking your power from you, but then at some point later on, they use your very power that they've taken from you, they use that against you. They use it to subdue you, to where your own power becomes an enemy against you. It becomes a threat to you. Because that's the thing, they're never meant to have power. They were never meant to have your power from you. They manipulated you, they deceived you. And they did that because they're aware of their fate at some level, and they're trying to avoid it. And they're trying to get away from it. They're trying to escape. But no matter what they do, they will never be able to avoid it. It's going to catch up to them at some point. And even though everything may look fine for them externally, it's actually hell in their minds. They're struggling, they can't cope. They're full of fear and paranoia. They're mentally and emotionally unstable, and this is why they've got to go out of their way to destabilize you. This is why they have to manipulate you into the fantasy world, into the illusion, through deception, to where they then end up betraying you. And then you're left with the short end of the stick, and despite that, to cover their tracks, they then run a smear campaign against you. All in an effort to avoid their own fate, to delay the inevitable. And this is why they can never be alone. This is why they can never find peace in their alone time. They're always seeking out sources of supply, someone to validate the false self and the illusion. Because it then helps them to dodge their karma, to delay their inevitable fate. I mean, that's what we did for them. By us being around them, by them having us involved in their life, they used us kind of like a shield. It's as though bullets were coming towards them, and then they just held us in front of themselves, and the bullets just ricocheted off. They used us to protect them against their fate, their karma. And that's how, whenever things went wrong for them, we were always there. Whenever they were struggling emotionally, we were there to regulate them. We were there to make them feel better about themselves. That was the role that we played for them. We were their emotional tampons, their emotional punching bags, their fools, their doormats. And without us there, they would have fallen apart. They would have had to have dealt with their karma head on, unless they had someone else on the side. And this is really what a source of supply is. It's to help delay the inevitable, to help them avoid their fate. That's the purpose of them having supply. And that's why they manipulate us, because if we could see what they're really like, if we could see who this person is and what they do, we would see that it's very dangerous to be around them. Because someone with that mindset, someone with these behaviors, they're going to end up in a lot of trouble. It's going to end up coming back on them at some point. And it did come back on them. They did implode while we were with them. And we saw that. We saw them implode again and again. And we had to deal with the effects on that. We had to take on the effects of their disorder and of their behaviors. We had to deal with that. We had to deal with their karma. It was their karma that we were dealing with while we were with them, that they were avoiding. We had to go through that. We had to deal with it. But that wasn't ours. But this is why they manipulate and deceive people to get us involved with them, so that we can take the blow for them. We can act as this sponge and absorb all of the trauma, all of the pain that they're meant to experience, that they're meant to go through. Because as a result of their actions and behaviors, that's all a result of what they've done. That's their karma. Their emotional pain, their shame, their instability, that's all their karma. That's a part of their fate. That's what they're meant to go through on their own. And they're avoiding it through using us as an emotional punching bag. This is what they're doing. And I know what it's like in some ways, because I had to go through that myself before. And I tried using other people at times, but then I was left alone and I had to go through it on my own. I had to go inside, I had to go within and deal with my own fate, my own karma, as a result of my own behaviors, as a result of my own sin from the past, which of course is nothing compared to what narcissists do. But this is known as our shadow self. We have to deal with our own shadow in order to then become authentic. We have to accept the things that we have done to people, the things that we have done wrong, our faults and mistakes. We have to take accountability. But as long as we run from it, we're just delaying the inevitable. And this is what narcissists do. They're delaying the inevitable. Only with them it's far more extreme, because they do things that most people would not do. Most people would not operate with a false self and manipulate people. They would not betray people. They would not run them into the ground, destroy them emotionally, ruin their lives. They wouldn't do any of that. But this is what narcissists do. And that's their true self. That is their authentic self as a result of their actions and behaviors. That's what they're running from. And this is why they go from one person to the next. They get involved with us in an attempt to escape the shadow self, the true self. They're running from it, from a past situation. So then they get involved with us to try and escape it. But we see through the false self. We realize that's not who they are, because of the lies of future faking, because they never actually follow up their words with action. So then we notice the incongruence. We notice that it's out of harmony. They're not acting in accordance with what they're saying. They don't mean what they're saying. And so we see that they're just running from their shadow self, their true self. They're trying to run from the shame. And then when we catch on to it, they project it all onto us. They get us to identify with it, to act in agreement with it, to play it out for them, to deal with the emotional pain for them. So they just dump it onto us, and then they go off to the next person to try and run away from it, to try and run from who they are. Well, our job is just to unlearn it, what we've been taught from them, to realize that this is not us. It's not our emotional baggage. It's not what we're meant to deal with. It hasn't got anything to do with us. That's what we have to do, is disidentify from it. Because the entire time that you're with a narcissist, you're disassociated. You're not even being yourself from the very beginning. They're manipulating you, they're love bombing you into a fantasy world. They're imposing a false character onto you, especially when they're devaluing you. So you just have to unlearn all of that and realize that it's just not yours. Yes, you may have things from the past that's a part of your shadow self, And being with a narcissist can help you to awaken to that so that you can move past it. But the rest of it is really just them. They're just trying to dump it all onto you, their shame, their trauma that they don't want to deal with. And that's how they manage to bring so much chaos and drama into your life. This is how they cause so many problems for you. Because it's all because of things that they do not want to attend to within. They do not want to deal with it. And so they use people as an escape, as a distraction, to try and avoid their inevitable fate. Because it's constantly creeping up on them. I don't mean that it's something where they're just going to have to deal with it at some point in the future. No, this is actually what they're going through now. They're already dealing with it. It's already playing on their minds, and this is why they've got to have a source of supply. They've got to have that validation for the false self of the illusion. They've got to engage in all of these addictions. They've got to get drunk, smoke heavily, gamble, or whatever it is that they're addicted to. They've got to have that to access. They've got to numb their minds because they're trying to escape. They're trying to run from their shadow self. They're trying to disconnect from themselves. And they're successful in doing that when they engage in their addictions or when they've got a good source of supply. But it's going to keep catching up with them. It's going to keep creeping up on them. And they're never going to be able to get rid of it. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be playing on their minds. That energy is always going to be in their bodies. And this is why once they run out of energy from the previous source of supply, all of the energy and characteristics that they stole from the last source, which they then use for them to have the ability to mirror back to you and idealize you, once that runs out, and you begin to see beneath the veil, through the mask, that's why they then turn against you. Because again, it's creeping up on them. That shame is coming back up. Karma's looking for them. And this is why they just spend their entire lives trying to run away from it. Always blaming and punishing someone else. They've always got to have a scapegoat. They've always got to have someone to bully and intimidate for that reason. Because they're running from themselves. They're running from their true self. And we can all do this to some extent. I mean, it's not just narcissists. To a smaller extent, we can all feel insecure sometimes, and then we just want to pick on someone else to make ourselves feel better. And sometimes even with narcissists, we may want to just poke and joke at them so that we'll feel better about ourselves, so that we can escape our own shadow self, the things that we need to work on and deal with. So we all have that to some extent. And also some people may like to watch criminal investigations so that we can look at those people and think, oh, they're so horrible, they're so evil, they're so wicked, so that maybe we feel better about our own actions. Or even people in poverty, people who don't have a job, it can make us feel better about our own lives, about where we are in life. So we all do this, this unconscious assimilation and rejection to some extent, this disidentification through the use of an external source, a separate person. We all do this sometimes, but with narcissists, it is to the extreme. They are in complete denial of themselves. They are running from themselves. They want nothing to do with themselves whatsoever. And this is why they've got to have a source of supply. They've got to have a scapegoat. They've got to have someone they're blaming and victimizing for that very reason. This is why. And this is why they will never forgive you for whatever you're meant to have done or whatever they exaggerated that you did do. They will always hold a grudge against you for that reason. Because if they were to let that go, if they were to forgive you for whatever you're meant to have done, or if they were to accept that they were blame shifting and it was actually them, that would then be them coming back to their authentic self. Because the reality is that these people are always the source of the problem. Even when they do blame you for something, and let's say you actually did do something wrong, typically it's reactive abuse, and if they didn't do what they did, then you wouldn't have reacted in that way. Because that's what they do. They're constantly pushing and provoking you for a deliberate reaction. They want to get that reaction out of you so that they can point the finger at you and blame you. This is what they do because they're trying to dissociate from themselves. They don't want anything to do with themselves. And this is why everything they do is just to avoid their own fate. And their fate is returning back to themselves. And so when you understand it from that perspective, you realize that their fate, it's a horrible fate. I mean, we're talking about everything they've done to people throughout their entire lives. Everything. All of the shame that comes along with that. All of the trauma. All of the neglect of themselves from existing in a fantasy with a false character. They've got to come home to that. And that's always there. All of the things that they left unresolved, it's waiting for them. Everything that they try to dump onto you, it's there within themselves. And this is why the older they get, the worse they get. The more toxic, the more miserable and angry. Because everything that they try to escape, everything that they left unresolved, it's still there. And it really just destroys them in the end. And they can become extremely dangerous when you are around them in old age. They can be really horrible, wicked people, really destructive. I mean, just think about it like this. I mean, some of the most evil dictators in the world, they weren't young people. Just think about Hitler, Stalin, Mao. Dictators who killed millions of people. There's so many of them. They were all much older. And they did some wicked things because they were running from their true, authentic selves, their shadow selves. And this is how many of them, if you keep them alone for a certain amount of time, if they're held accountable for their actions, if they're put away in prison, many of them just can't even deal with their own shame. They just end up taking their own lives. Just look at what happened with Epstein. And there's so many others like that as well. A lot of celebrities, I mean, they may not have done really wicked or immoral acts, but many of them are living in a fantasy. They're just pretending to be something they're not. They're running away from themselves. And that's how they're so depressed. And also, this is a problem with a lot of them, because by them being fake, by them not being authentic, they end up being surrounded by a bunch of other fake people who don't see the real them. And it just makes everything even worse. Because you can deny reality as much as you want. You can deny your true self. It's still there. As a result of your actions and behaviors, it's not going anywhere. It's always going to be there waiting for you, and it's going to be creeping up on you. No matter what you do, no matter where you go. And we all have to attend to it. We have to attend to our shadow self. We have to go through the dark night of the soul. And there will be many phases of this throughout our lives. And I had to do it. I had to go through it many times. There were several occasions throughout my life where I was suicidal, where I didn't even want to live anymore. Because it's a horrible thing to go through. To question our own intentions, to question the things that we may have done wrong. It's a very difficult experience. But that's how we become our true selves. That's how we become more authentic. So it's very important for us to go through that. But this is not something that narcissists want to do. Because it's far more extreme for them. They have really evil intentions. They've done some wicked things to people. Things that they cannot ever accept. It's always got to be someone else's fault. They always have to justify it. They can never look at themselves like they're just an evil person. They can never accept that. Because then that would mean that they would have to face consequences, that they would have to be held accountable. And they don't want to go through that. So everything they do is just to avoid their fate. It's just to avoid the inevitable outcome for themselves. What's inevitably going to happen, and what is inevitably happening at the moment for them. Because they're constantly going through it. And this is how, when you're with them, you can see it. They're dealing with so much stress. They can never relax. They can never be at peace with themselves. To the point where you can't even be at peace with yourself around them. Normally, you would be at peace with yourself, but they have to impose a false character onto you. They have to get you to identify with everything that they are and everything that you're not. To where you're then disassociating, you're then out of harmony with your authentic self. Because you've been manipulated and gaslighted. They have to destabilize you for themselves to feel comfortable. Because they do not want to deal with their authentic selves. They do not want to deal with who they actually are as a result of things that they have done to people. They do not want to deal with that. And this is why they're just living in hell in their minds. This is why it's just such a horrible experience to be around them. This is why it's so miserable. Because they do not want to deal with themselves. This is why they've got to manipulate you, deceive you, lie to you, future fake you. Because that's the only way that you're ever going to get involved with them. If you could see the real person underneath the mask, how miserable and angry they are, you would never have gotten involved with them. And that's why when you start waking up, they then devalue you. And they start blaming you for everything. And then if you don't fall for that, if you don't back down, then they run a smear campaign on you. They isolate you so that you've got nowhere else to go. They have to corner you and push it onto you, get you to accept it. everything that they're trying to disown about themselves. Yeah, they're running from it, but they're never going to escape. They cannot outrun nature. They cannot escape their fate. If you found this video helpful so far, give it a thumbs up. I'm seeing 120 live viewers and only 24 thumbs ups. Let's work together to get this video out there. Because this is it. This is the truth. They know their fate. They know what's coming after them. And they know that they just can't get away from it. Everything they're doing is just a temporary solution to escape it. Temporarily. And this is how they're just running through their addictions. They're running through sources of supply. Everything's so fast paced and they're just running from it. Whereas for us, we're running from what they're projecting onto us, when we just have to slow down. Instead of trying to run from it and instead of trying to escape, we have to slow down and work through it. Because we can work through it. And we can work through it because it's not that extreme for ourselves, and a lot of what we think belongs to us actually belongs to them. So we just have to slow down and we can process it. They can't because they have a disorder, so they just want to speed up and just try and run away from it, escape from it. Now let's see how everyone's doing in the live chat. I hope everyone's doing okay, and I hope you got something out of this video. I hope it resonated with you. Drazik Milosevic says the narc is a shout with no echo, deaf to truth, blind to the light. Yes, they have to be deaf to the truth. They cannot hear the truth. They're running from the truth because the truth is against them. The George says, just tries to annoy me, to make me mad, to point the finger at me. Yeah, they will just push and provoke you to destabilize you. Because they're just living in hell in their minds, and it's their karma catching up to them, their fate that they're running from. And as I said, if they've got a source of supply that they can use as an emotional punching bag, then they're escaping their fate temporarily. But by them doing that, it actually perpetuates it. It gets even worse for them. Max says, do narcs ever delusionally think others are doing things that they aren't doing without proof? Not for a reaction, but genuinely think they're doing it? Yes, of course, narcissists can be very paranoid and hypervigilant, because you're going to think they're already doing things and they're hiding it. So they're already on that wavelength. And they're looking to project a blame shift, to disown parts of themselves and assign them to someone else. So they engage in unconscious assimilation. where they're looking for it in other people to assign it to them so that it relieves it in themselves, so that they don't feel blameworthy. Grumpy Author 7 says, wish them the best and tell them you hope they heal. Let them sit on that as the last thing you said to them. Now that really depends. If you're dealing with a narcissist, that would probably offend them, because of course they want to believe that they're perfect, that they're faultless and flawless, as though they don't have to heal anything, they're already fine. So yeah, that would really offend a narcissist, and it would really stick with them. It would be something that they remember. But as for those who are higher on the spectrum, sociopaths or psychopaths, you can tell them that you hope they heal. They're not going to care, because many of them actually like their disorder. Sociopaths and psychopaths, they enjoy the way that their disorder is, because they like how it works with their supply. And they enjoy exploiting people and having power over them. So that's not going to bother them. It's the narcissist who that would upset. But sociopaths and psychopaths, they kind of like it. Even though they're miserable and they lack feeling and sensation, and they have to live like that every day for the rest of their lives, it's kind of all they've known. They don't really know any other way. And they may think that other people who are a different way are actually just being fake, disingenuous, manipulative. So they're quite comfortable in that. And it's really all they've known. And when they're thrill seeking, they're not really thinking about that. They're not thinking about how horrible their disorder is. And that's why they're just constantly seeking an escape. They're just constantly seeking a thrill. The George says they all try to future fake with you, then just ignore you soon after, pretend you don't exist. Yeah, it's a very common thing with narcissists. I mean, they're scammers, they're con artists. So they'll give you the future fake, they'll paint a perfect picture of the future with you, something that they likely don't even have the means to actually make it a reality. Because think about it, I mean, we're talking about a disordered person, a miserable person. They can paint a picture of the future with you, of you going on vacation together, laying on the beach, sipping cocktails. It's never going to happen. It's never going to be like that with them. They're miserable, angry people. It's only ever going to be a fantasy. It's only ever going to be something that exists in your imagination. It's never going to be a reality. You can imagine it in your mind, and you can get a certain sensation from it yourself. But one thing I can guarantee is that the feeling or sensation that you derive from their future faking, you're never going to have that experience with them. Not with them being a part of it. And that's the whole point. That's why they future fake. Because narcissists, they're all about their love bombing. They love bombing their targets. So think about it like this. Why is there another component involved? Why is there the love bombing, the manipulation, the seduction? But then a separate part of it is the future faking. Why have the future faking? Why not just do it now? Why wait? If they want to secure you, they want to lock you down. They want to get as much supply out of you as they can. The future faking component is because they can't. They can't make it a reality. Or if they did make it a reality, it would just look shabby. It would look cheap and unsophisticated, and that's why they just leave that out. That's why they just leave that to your imagination. They leave it to your imagination for a reason. And once you catch on to it, you may start thinking on that wavelength as well. You may be thinking, all right, yeah, let's just settle for this. Let's just leave this to my imagination, because that's probably going to be as good as it gets anyway. Let's not spoil it. Let's not ruin it. It's kind of like with movies. I'm sure with a lot of movies these days, they have these amazing trailers, these incredible trailers, and it looks so good in the trailer. It looks like it's going to be so entertaining, and then you actually go and watch the movie, and it's rubbish. It's like you wish that you just stuck to the trailer, that little movie trailer that you had that was about 1 minute long. You wish you had just watched that, because it left so much to the imagination about what it could have been, rather than to actually experience it. And then it's just an absolute nightmare. It's kind of like when they do all of these sequel movies, when it's like, no, should have just left it to the one movie, because the rest of it ruined the first one. Aaron Michael says they're all terrified of hellfire. No one seems to speak of this, but anyone who's had one as a lover knows. I have heard people speak about this, and it's true. Yes, I mean, regardless of your own personal, religious, or spiritual beliefs, from what I've seen and from what I've researched, they are terrified of hellfire, yes. They're terrified of the potential afterlife. We don't have to have a debate on whether there is something after this life. Just talking about their fears, their insecurities. They fear the possibility that there could be something after this life, and what's going to happen to them as a result of the things that they have done to people, as a result of the things that they have never been held accountable or punished for, things that they have gotten away with, things that they know are wrong, things that they did with ill intentions, where they intended to harm people. So yes, they have a great fear of what might happen to them after this life. They have a great fear of that. And this is why it's like many of them are kind of in denial about God or an afterlife. They just kind of act like they don't believe in that. They're in denial of it, just like they're in denial of anything that they feel like could threaten their grandiosity, to where they would have to be held accountable for things. The George says, are narcs autistic or something? Some narcissists could be misdiagnosed as having bipolar. Not sure about autism. However, what I would say is definitely do not get those disorders mixed up. Autism, bipolar, and narcissistic personality disorder, these are very different. I mean, even NPD and sociopathy or psychopathy, these are very different as well. There's a reason why they're all separate disorders, because they are very different. However, narcissism is often comorbid, more often than not, with other disorders. But narcissism and autism together, I mean, I'm not a doctor myself, but from what I've researched, I think narcissism and autism is probably less likely to be comorbid. It's more likely to be maybe bipolar, histrionic, borderline. Those disorders are more likely to be comorbid from my research. Of course, I welcome you to do your own research on this. And let me know in the comment section if you find anything different. And yes, also keep in mind, people with autism or bipolar, they actually have far less control over their behaviors. They really struggle to control their thoughts. And especially those with who are high on the spectrum of autism. I mean, if you look at some videos on YouTube of that disorder, they really don't know what they're doing, and they need a lot of support. So definitely don't put them in the same boat with narcissists, because they are very different. I mean, autism and bipolar and schizophrenia, I believe those are cluster A disorders. Narcissism is cluster B. So it's almost like autism and bipolar, schizophrenia, they're kind of possibly even more mentally ill than a narcissist, because they're in the cluster A. But then, of course, that also depends on how high on the spectrum they are. Mohit Mehta says a person with full-blown NPD has split personality, and I believe they are possessed by some entity. That's right, they do engage in splitting. Just as with those with borderline. They have a black-white mentality where they view people in all or nothing terms, good or bad, black or white. And of course, narcissists, they do have multiple personalities. They're chameleons, shapeshifters. They steal characteristics from people, which gives them energy, it gives them life, it fuels them. Promo 130 says, Ask Anushka said narcs mirror you because to give you, they think the person you want. Goes back to their childhood. What do you think? Yeah, I agree with that. I watch a lot of Ask Anushka's videos, and I think they're very good. And definitely, a lot of the things they do, these are primitive strategies that they have adapted from a hostile environment in childhood. They're all things that they learned in their childhood in order for them to get what they want. So yes, this is why they mirror you. And of course, you know, the narcissist tends to be the golden child in their childhood. And why are they the golden child? It's because they mirror the narcissistic parents. They mirror their ideals, their behaviors. They do what the narcissistic parent wants. And that's why the narcissistic parent is fond of them. Because they abandon themselves for the narcissistic parent. The narcissistic parent imposes a false self on them, and the narcissist aligned with that. And then this is how they manipulate you. They just become whatever you want them to be. Just as they did with the narcissistic parents in their childhood. And this is how, unlike us, they didn't end up being scapegoated. Because we didn't want to go along with that agenda. We just wanted to be our authentic selves. The George says, I think they just like disappointing people because it makes them feel good, like they duped you. Yes, definitely. It gives them that duper's delight. It makes them feel like they got one over on you. They tricked you. They're smarter than you. They outwitted you. And it's really childish when you think about it. It's really immature. But this is how they think. As though they're more skilled, they're more clever, they're 2 steps ahead of you. And if you were so smart, then you wouldn't have been fooled. Or maybe you're just not messed up like they are. You're not thinking in that way. Maybe you've always been loved and appreciated. You're not used to being conned, cheated. You're not used to getting that type of treatment. So that's how they were able to fool you. Of course, they don't want to see it that way, though, but that's actually the truth. Inhabitant of the Shiny Stone Hellers says they insult people. Then they say shit like you can't take a joke. Yeah, that's right, because everything's just a joke to them. They've got no values, no morals, no integrity. And again, they disown themselves and then they project and assign it to you. As though you're the problem. You're the problem because you can't take the things that they do to you. I mean, these types of people, they could burn your house down and then you could be there crying and sobbing about it. And then they'll call you too sensitive because they burned your house down. Some of them are quite literally that way. That could be an actual situation that can happen. Because some of them are actually that extreme. They're that crazy. They're that much out of their minds. The George says our imaginations are more interesting than their actual reality. Very true. And you don't have to remind the narcissist of that. You don't have to convince them. They know that all too well. This is why they work with your imagination. This is why your imagination is very important to them. Because they realize they've got a much better chance at working with your imagination than bringing anything into the actual reality. They know that what you can imagine in your mind is far better than anything that they can give to you. They know that already. Lydia, the chosen one, says they talk about everyone else but themselves. They feel like they can't do no wrong. They act like they're picture perfect. They get very angry when you snap them back to reality. Yeah, that's it. That's what they're like. I mean, they're perfectionists, obsessive, and compulsive. And also, they seem to hold these standards of perfection for us. But with them, they're perfect in fantasy. We're expected to be perfect in reality. Like, we can't do anything wrong because they're very sensitive to it. We have to be perfect. And then you try and be perfect for them, you try and get everything right, and then that's a problem as well. Then they're not happy with that too. You just cannot win with them. It's a double bind. You try and be perfect for them, you try and do everything exactly how they want it to be, and then they feel intimidated, then they feel insecure, then that's a problem as well. You cannot win with a narcissist. But yeah, everything these narcissists do is to try and avoid their inevitable fate. This is why they manipulate you, they deceive you, they lie to you, feature fake you. They sell you a dream. When you start to catch on, they start devaluing you, turning against you, intimidating you, trying to get you to back down, trying to make you think that everything's your fault. And then when you still don't believe it, then what do? They bring in their flying monkeys and they run a smear campaign against you. Because they're running from their fate. They're trying to run from the consequences and the shame of their own actions, of the things that they have done to you. And that's all that they're ever going to do. I mean, think about it. If someone isn't accepting their authentic self, they're going to be running from it for the rest of their lives. And it's going to keep catching up to them. What they resist will persist. And it will become even more intense as time goes on. it will become even more worse for them. And no matter what they do, they will never be able to get away with it. They will never be able to escape it. It will always be there. It will always be affecting them. And this is why you've got to think about going no contact. You've got to think about protecting yourself, because if it's always going to be with them, if you're around them, it's going to have an effect on you as well. And this is why we talk about going no contact, setting boundaries, just staying as far away from narcissists as we possibly can. Because they have a sickness, they have a disorder. They have an inability to accept themselves, the behaviours and things that they have done to people. And this creates a real problem for anyone who is around them. And this is why we have to be very careful when we are dealing with them. This is why we have to protect ourselves. And this is why I do advise making an exit plan and going no contact, if it is safe for you to do so. But before you do that, of course, speak to a therapist or coach first. I am available for one-on-ones, which you can book through my website. It's narcsurvivor.co.uk. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I read your comments every day. Hit the subscribe button and click on notifications. That way you will be notified when I go live in the future or when I upload a new video. Donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. I don't have any ads on my videos at the moment, so I'm not earning any revenue from this content. And that's why I really appreciate your donations, no matter how small they are. You're welcome to donate to my PayPal. It is paypal.me/Narc Survivor. And also follow me on Instagram. It's Narc Survivor YouTube. I've been posting some museums and art galleries here in the Philippines. You can see all of that on there and so much more. Follow me on my Instagram. It is Narc Survivor YouTube. Thank you all for joining me on another Narc Survivor live video, and I will talk to you soon.